What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today's going to be a very quick ship my cards mail day. I've got two cards coming back from PSA that you would have seen before, plus two pretty awesome pickups from Eminence, one from soccer, one from basketball, that have been on my want list for a number of years, one of which has been on my save search list on eBay for around 3 or 4 years now. It finally showed up for an affordable price, and I decided to sort of buy it because I happened to sell some cards from my PC, and I thought, you know what, let's ship them home, despite, me usually wanting to hold my cards over in the States for a long time to sort of save on return shipping fees. But I thought it was a good time to sort of ship them home and show them off in a video, because you guys often say that you don't see that enough from me. Now, like I said, this has come from Ship My Cards. They are a sponsor on the channel now, but I've used them for a number of years. They've only come on board as a sponsor in recent months, but they've sort of made this possible as always. Now, this card, you would have seen before, Andrea Pirlo, Flawless Soul of the Game. It's a match-worn boot relic in the card. I've said time and time again that Flawless Soccer is the greatest soccer set of all time. And I've also said time and time again that these inserts are the best card within the set. This is a Frank Lampard that came back as an authentic, and the Andrea Pirlo came back as a PSA 8. Now, it's a no-brainer why Flawless Soccer, in my opinion, is the greatest thing of all time. I think the set looks phenomenal, and I think it's better than anything Topps or Panini have produced since this came out in 15-16. They only released 1 year of Flawless Soccer. I think Soul of the Game is the best insert, primarily because soccer players play with their feet, and they have match-worn boot relics in them. These things often sell for a fraction of what the patch autos sell from this set, even for the same players, which makes no sense to me. I would have thought the boot relic is the thing that people actually want. But it is what it is. Like I said, one came back as an 8, one came back as authentic. I used PSA's minimum grade service. They recently brought that back. I set 8 as my minimum grading threshold. Obviously, the Pirlo came as an 8. The Lampard came back as authentic. You guys might say, why did I go ahead and do that? It's because authentic seem to sell for as much as a PSA 8 most of the time. People are dumb. They buy the label, not the card. So when they see a 7 or a 6, they're going to sort of pay less, even though the authentic might look worse, which makes, no sense to me. And apologies if I'm sounding a bit sniffly. I'm not feeling too well, which is why you've not seen a video from me for a week or so. But yeah, never really made sense to me. And that's also why I went ahead and graded with PSA. You guys will know I'm a CGC fanboy. I talk about them all the time because I think their grading guarantee is the best. It actually protects you as a submitter, i.e. if they grade a fake card or they make a mistake, they're going to protect you. PSA doesn't. The reason why I went with PSA is because I've said a lot in recent months that, I don't feel super comfortable spending big money on sports cards. In fact, I've said that for a number of years now. Both of these cards cost me under $1,000 USD. I think they were like $500 and $700 respectively. Obviously, that's a lot of money for me to spend, but not a lot for others out there. I've talked about not feeling super comfortable spending that kind of money on sports cards because they're just collectibles and I've got a family. So me putting them in a PSA slab versus CGC means if I need to sell them quickly, and to me this is a lot of money to be spending on cards, if I need to sell them quickly, I can do that a lot faster in a PSA slab versus a CGC slab, because people out there are sheep. So I'm going to capitalize on that. I want to keep them in my PC long term, but if I ever need to sell quickly to sort of do something for my family, I can do that a lot faster in a PSA slab. And again, that authentic versus a grade of 7, 6, or a 5 is going to sell a lot quicker, than that equivalent grade, because people are dumb. They buy the label, not the card. Now, the next two things, and apologies for sounding stiffly, are two cards that I picked up recently, both from Eminence, one from Eminence Basketball first year, one from Eminence Soccer first year, and are things that I've wanted for a long, long time. Now, the first of which has been on my eBay watch list for 3 or 4 years in my safe searches, and I've never really bit the bullet to go ahead and buy one. Eventually, this showed up, and it had been on there for a long time, but I decided to sort of message the seller and see if he could do a deal, and he did, in fact, do that outside of eBay. I grabbed this for $500 USD posted. I think that's pretty cheap from considering what these things sell for. Ideally, I would have wanted the gold, and apologies for sniffling, I'm trying my best not to do that. I would have wanted the gold, which is the out of 5, but they typically sell for a lot more money. I think one recently sold for $800 USD. Now, you might say that's cheap compared to this, considering it's only $200, $300 more, but it's a gold version. The problem with Larry Bird in Eminence is that his D on the end of Bird is often like really cramped. It's like he's signed too big from the get-go, so when he's gone to the end of the card, he's realized he doesn't have enough room, so he'll often like hook the rest of the D. I can't do it back to front, but he'll hook the D up there, or he'll sort of go off card. And so many of his autos are ruined because of that. And I think this one looks a lot better than that out of 5 that's sold. I think the relic looks just as good. And I think There's no streaks on this one, so it's a great pickup. You know, I've wanted a Larry Bird match worn patch auto for a long time. I really like the fact that this is first year Eminence because I think that kind of thing gives collectors more comfort long term. If I'm thinking longer term and trying to be sensible with my money, I think first year releases are things that are going to carry a bit more value long term. I think people are going to want those things long term. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I like to collect. And sort of this, I really like the relic. I know some people don't like the smaller window. There's some in this set that have a bigger window. But I just think the art and aesthetics of this card are freaking awesome. Yes, the gold looks a million times better in terms of the gold parallel, the out of 5. But you need to grab what you can get when you can get it, right? And like I said, this has been on my eBay save search list for 3 or 4 years. I've not seen one sell for this cheap. And maybe I have and I've missed it. But to me, at that price point, it's a no-brainer. And there's not a better looking, more affordable Panini era card that I would want to buy. Obviously, he's got some fantastic patch auto stuff from Upper Deck and obviously flawless from Panini, but that stuff is just out of my price range. You know, to give you context, there's a 2014-15 or 15-16 flawless version of Larry Bird that sold recently. And basically, it was the version where the auto was at the bottom and you had Larry Bird in the middle, and there's like a patch relic on either side of the card. That thing looks a lot better than this, obviously, because it's a much nicer looking, cleaner looking card. But it's sold for $8,000. Like, I can't afford to spend $8,000 on a sports card when I can get something like this, which is still match worn, still on card auto for $500. And I think in the Panini era, the gold autos, I think, stand out. And this thing looks like a collectible. This thing looks high end, and I really like it. Obviously, I like it because I bought it, but to get it in hand and finally touch it, I think is awesome. You know, people hate on Eminence. They don't like the gold autos. I think it's fantastic, and you know, love the fact that I got it so cheap. So, you know, let me know your thoughts on that one. In terms of my last pickup, it's another Eminence, this time Eminence Soccer from 2018 of Fabio Cannavaro. This is from the Championship Calligraphy insert set. The reason why I like this is, number one, I've wanted it for a long time. I'm Italian. Fabio captained us to the 2006 World Cup win. This set is targeted around that World Cup because, again, it's Championship Calligraphy. And the diamond in the card basically says 2006 World Cup around it. It is also numbered 1 out of 10, which I thought was pretty cool. I don't really buy into the whole serial numbered stuff, but when it's 1 out of 10 relating to a title-winning campaign, I think that sort of adds to the value and to the appeal of collecting the card. It's a little bit unfortunate, like I said, with the Larry Bird, that sometimes these gold autos don't come out too well. There's a bit of a smudge there on the Cannavaro portion of his autograph, you know, but it is what it is. You know, these two things showed up in the space of a week of each other, and they were both funded by sales of other cards. So fortunately, I had the money ready to go. And fortunately, they're both pretty much paid for via profits, which is always fantastic to do. But this thing in particular, when this came up, I was like, okay, I'm interested. I'm going to try and get it for cheap. It ended up going for a bit more than I was sort of super comfortable paying. I was ultimately comfortable, but I was trying to get it for under 500. I think it sold for like 650, including buyer's premium. But checking comps, these things, you know, never showed up. You know, I can't find the last time that one of these sold, and maybe I was looking at card ladder wrong. But these things never show up. And I think we're at a point now in the hobby that I've talked about recently where things are very bubbly, things are getting very frothy, and I think people are willing to sort of cash in on this hype that's going on right now. And what that often means is a lot of these cards that you don't see very often are now starting to show up for sale. And as a collector, you sort of have to sit back and think, well, do I want to, you know, overpay, or do I want to run the risk of never seeing this thing again? And, you know, it's a battle that we constantly face as collectors, but I thought, you know what, in this particular instance, I'm going to go ahead and try and buy it. And if these things, you know, hit the market and liquidate and they end up being worthless, you know, so be it. Because when I looked at comps and historical sales of not just Fabio for this insert, but inserts general, as in other players from this insert, they don't show up very often. And I think when you're talking about Eminent Soccer, that's meant to be this very, very high-end set. When you're talking about World Cups, when you're talking about World Cup winners, and Fabio captained us to a World Cup, I'll repeat myself, and he won the Ballon d'Or that year, i.e. best player in the world, I think a set like this, tailored and targeted around that tournament win, I think is just, you sort of got to buy it when you see it. So, you know, it is what it is. Again, I would have preferred the gold insert, but I've not ever seen one of those things sell. I don't think one of those has ever made the secondary market. Maybe it has, but I've just missed it. But you need to take what you can get. The silvers don't look horrible. The gold would have looked a lot better. And again, the gold for the Larry Bird would have looked a lot better. But you need to grab what you can. And obviously, there are nicer looking inserts than this. I don't like the picture compared to some of his others, but you know, this card being targeted around the winning championship season, I think you need to buy. I think that stuff just has more appeal to a slightly more aesthetic looking card. You guys might challenge me on that, but I think it's awesome. There's some glue in here. I bought this from Fanatics Collect. Their crap is always done really poorly. Like, there's so many times I've bought things from them and their slabs have been trashed that they've not talked about in the listing. The fact there's like sticky residue on here is just utterly ridiculous, but you know, it is what it is. So, you know, anyway, Guys, share your thoughts down in the comments below. Apologies for being a bit AWOL lately. I've not been well. You know, it is what it is. We're going to come back in the coming days talking about some of these scams going on. Something really interesting happened with Alt in the last 24 hours that I think is utterly insane. I'm going to talk about that if the person gives me permission to talk about it, so stay tuned for that. And as always, if you're using Ship My Cards, drop me a comment down below telling me what you like about them. For me, they've made collecting so much more accessible over the years because there's so many cards that I've been able to buy that I wouldn't have been able to buy in the past, and they just make it so much more affordable because I'm saving fortune on postage. So, you know, if you're not using them, go ahead and use them. Use Cardman10 as the coupon code. You get $10 as a credit towards your account to cover fees or postage, both, depending on what you're buying. So yeah, go ahead and use them, and don't just use them because they've come on board as a sponsor. You know, look at my videos of the last 3 to 4 years. I've talked about them a lot. I've made many videos highlighting them. Don't just go by the fact that they've been, you know, sponsored or they've come on board as a sponsor in the last month or two. So anyway, it is what it is. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.